Hello everybody and welcome back to JY Heating Tech. We're going to talk today, this episode, generally about boilers, their faults, and what are the basic stuff that the homeowner should look for so they can repair their boilers. Domestic boilers in the UK in the last 15 years or so are mainly room sealed appliances. Room sealed appliance means it takes the air for combustion from outside, chucks the products of combustion to outside. As you can see from the picture here is a picture of a simple boiler where it takes the air into the combustion chamber, burns it out and chucks it out through the flue to outside. This is a picture of a condensing boiler which has been into effect since 2005, and it's roughly the same thing throughout the outer tube into the combustion chamber, through the fan into the flue, and chucks the products of combustion to outside. Boilers have two sets of faults generally. One set of faults is a resettable fault, so if the boiler will encounter some intermittent fault, for example, if you've got the gas on the main gas is being interrupted, the boiler can't light up and it will go into a lockout, and you reset it and it will work. When the boiler senses there's something that is not right in its operation, then it will go into a non-resettable fault, which means it doesn't matter how much you reset that boiler, it will not work, and it does not want to work because it feels there's something wrong with its operation and it would need a competent person to come and have a look at it. As you can see, resettable messages or lockouts, not messages, are due to not a faulty component but an external issue that the boiler encountered, and when you resume the work, you reset the boiler, it will carry on working as normal. The non-resettable messages, there are four major things that could go with the boiler, which you will see later on in the presentation. They might concern the boiler safety operation or a faulty component in the boiler. The boiler does not feel safe to work, hence it goes into a non-resettable fault, and it would need a gas engineer or a competent person to come and have a look at what the issue is. The boiler user, the home user of the boiler's best friend is the boiler manual or installation manual. Number one, it has the benchmark which has to be signed by an installer at the back. It has a service schedule which has to be signed every time. Also has a lot of information about the boiler safety, about the boiler working, and when it goes into fault, it has a list of the fault codes that the boiler when it stops working. So it's something you need to go back to and see what that fault code is. If it's something that is simple, interrupted the operation of the boiler, then you would reset it and it will give you an indication of what is it doing or what it is not doing. Irrespective of what you hear the boiler doing or the noises it's doing, most modern boilers are not dangerous by themselves. If they can make banging noises, it makes whirring noises, it makes noises that are not usual when it's working, don't worry about them, they're quite safe. If it's something that is horrible, it will shut itself down, it will go out into a lockout mode, and you can't reset that. Modern boilers, they have a printed circuit board inside them, and they are so advanced nowadays, they resemble computers. So if you've got a computer or a laptop and there was a sudden power cut to that computer, when the power is resumed, it's not just straight away it will function. It needs to reboot itself. It might not take as long as a computer or a laptop, but it will take time for it to reboot, resume its operations, do its own internal checks on the boiler to make sure that everything is okay before it resumes its normal function. There are three basic faults on a domestic boiler, and modern boilers, when there is something wrong, it will display that fault code on the boiler, which you can find out what that means in the installation manual. The four key components to a boiler operation are the power supply, as in electrics, gas supply, if there is sufficient water in the heating system and the hot water system, or there is a ventilation issue, as in it can't get enough oxygen from outside, or it cannot chuck the products of combustion to outside. The most simple one is the power supply. If you go to the boiler and see the display completely blank, press any button on it. Some boilers will go to sleep, so they won't display anything. If after pressing any button the display does not light up and it's still blank, go and see if there is power supply. It has stripped from the main fuse board, or if you can see here, there is a fused spur and it should have a 3-amp fuse. If you're comfortable enough to check the 3-amp fuse has stripped or not, or replace it and double check that. If there is still no joy, then the internal boiler fuse has stripped and it would need the intervention of a competent person to investigate and remedy. Gas supply. The modern boilers will always go on an ignition lockout if there is no gas. What I've been, in my experience, and I've been doing this for quite a long time, most issues are either somebody, a third party, somehow turned the gas off from the meter, or as you see in the picture, this is a prepaid meter with a pre-charged card, so you need to put money in the card to let the gas supply work. When it runs out of gas, it actually goes into a lockout. I might do a video about when you charge it, you need to unlock it. You might do some sort of a short video about that. If you have a gas hob on the property, turn the hob on, see if there is any gas in the hob. If there isn't, then it's not a boiler issue, it is a gas supply issue. If you have gas in the hob or any other gas appliance and it works, then it is a boiler issue, and then it means some component inside the boiler has failed, because if it's a non-resettable fault, after you press the reset button it still doesn't want to work, then it would need the intervention of a competent person to investigate. The third issue usually I encounter with system boilers and combi boilers, or any boiler, and even heat-only boilers, is there is no water in the system. All systems lose water over the course of 12 months, irrespective of how good or new these systems are. In a pressurized system, when it loses water, there is a pressure sensor that tells the boiler there is no water in the system, I'm not going to work. In an open vent system, and it's not a pressurized system, the pump will not work properly, will not circulate the water properly. The boiler will start working, will not be able to get rid of the heat it produces, and it goes into lockout. What I suggest, if it's a pressurized system or an open vent system, every year or every 6 months, depending on how big is your system, check if it has any pressure, and it would need repressurizing if it's a pressurized system. And we'll do a very short video about the 2 types of filling loops and what do they look like, so the homeowner would know what he's looking for. If it's an open vent system, then there will be a small tank in the loft and it will refill itself by itself once you bleed all the radiators and make sure there is water in the system. Lack of water in the system will make the boiler go into a lockout, because it produces a lot of heat, but that heat is not transferred into heating and hot water, so the boiler overheats and shuts itself down. Ventilation and fan issues, breathing issues for the boiler. As you can see from the picture, on the boiler flue, on the outer tube is the air inlet. So it takes the air into the boiler to mix with the gas, and then burn the gas, produce the heat, and chuck products of combustion through the middle. So if the boiler is not getting enough air inside it to breathe, to complete the combustion, or it cannot get rid of the products of combustion safely to outside, it will shut itself down. Sometimes it makes noises because it's become asthmatic and it can't breathe properly. Mostly it's either due to the fan that is not operating properly, which brings air into the boiler and after the products of combustion to chuck to outside, or the flue is blocked. The flue terminal is blocked. There is some plants growing onto it, something that is preventing it from taking air in and chucking the air out. In my long experience, I hardly ever find a fan that is faulty. Fans generally, that doesn't mean it's always the same case, but fans are very, very well made. But I've seen quite a lot of blocked flues. The neighbor has decided to build an extension. The wall is very close to the flue, so if that is the wall is here, the products of combustion will come out and will recirculate into the boiler, interrupting its operation. Somebody is working on the roof and put a tarpaulin on here and covered the flue by accident without checking it. There is a lot of issues that happen, but it's one of these issues that will make the boiler go into lockout, and without investigation by a competent person, you would not be able to reset that boiler because it does not feel that it's working safely. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope I'm giving you some information to make your life easier about boilers and about central heating. Hopefully we'll see you in the next episode and the future episodes. Thanks a lot.